Ladies and gentlemen, we are in for a real treat here tonight on Sportswire Radio because this man has been one of the hardest people I've had to get on Sportswire Radio. And he's actually one of the few people I've actually watched live and in person, live in the flesh and wound. And he was one of the clutchest, toughest players I had ever watched on a basketball court. He has transferred all of that success at BMCC, Brooklyn College, where he won not one, not two, but CUNYAC championships. He has also done a number of different things on the court now as a coach, and he's done maybe his most important role yet as the founder of the Trust Your Process, TYP, where he has turned dreams into realities, and he's even been on News 12, where he might have got his biggest fame just yet. This man has done it all. He has been one of the hardest people, as I stated, to have here on Sportswire Radio, and that is why we're very honored to have him, and he has to get that introduction that everybody else gets here over the past 5 years. So with that, further ado here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show, the legendary Anthony McClean. Coach, how you doing?
I'm good. I gotta say that was very impressive. That was very impressive.
Coming from you, because you're on the court, you play in some pretty big games, you've won some championships, you've done it all. If you're saying that, it's different when one of the wrestlers comes on because they expect it. They expect those things. On the basketball court, if you're saying that, obviously that means something. But all kidding aside, it has certainly been well worth the wait to have you. You have been one of those guys that has been very elusive for me here on Sportswire Radio when I think about, obviously, all the different people that I've had on from Brooklyn College or around the CUNY. The last interview I did was with Divine Chisholm. That's where I started thinking, you know what? I got to bring Anthony on because you guys obviously know each other very well. And a who's who of people on Sportswire Radio that I have had on in the past have definitely been people that you have a thought or two on, but I'll get to that later. I really want to talk, though, about the current. For those that are listening and watching this here on Sportswire Radio Coaching, you were involved in something called the Trust Your Process. You guys just had your third tournament here this summer, and it was just even more successful, I would even say, than the first two combined. So you have definitely, as I stated, turned dreams into reality. So for those listening and watching here on Sportswire Radio, talk about year 3 of the Trust Your Process and the tournament itself and everything that led to all the things that we see with you right now.
So I just want to start off by saying thank you. I appreciate you. I've been watching your podcast and your show for the past couple of months, and I must say you've been doing a tremendous job, and it's an honor to be here.
Checks in the mail.
As far as TYP, so a lot of people thought that TYP started when we began the tournament in 2021, but we didn't. So Trust Your Process literally was a dream that I had, and I wanted to bring it into reality, just like how you said in the intro. When I had the dream, I had went to a couple of friends of mine by the name of Anglin and Omar, and I honestly just told them about the dream I had. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if they would understand where I was coming from, or the plan or the vision that I saw for myself and for the community, but they honestly gave me the most loving, caring, and genuine answers that I would have never thought of. My brother Omar, him and I went to middle school together. He plays a tremendous part into why TYP is what it is today. I basically started TYP because I was getting bullied a lot when I was in middle school, and I was always the type of guy where I just wanted to show love. And I always felt like if you show love, it will get reciprocated to you. So I felt like being that I was in middle school, I wasn't getting the type of love that I thought I deserved. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just do something for the people? Why don't I just do something for the community? And when I started TYP, we really got the ball rolling in 2018 when I committed to Brooklyn College. Omar was the first person that I told that I was going to Brooklyn College, because he was with me every step of the way, literally from transit. When I graduated in transit and I committed to BMCC, when I was in BMCC, going all the way to Brooklyn, I can't remember the last time that Omar missed a basketball game of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, like we're really like this. That's my right hand man. So when I committed to Brooklyn College, I told him, I said, listen, bro, you're doing your music. I'm gonna do TYP, but I want you to be a part of this. Like I want you to have more of a saying inside of the brand. And he went full-fledged with it. He opened up his own music studio. He made his own music label under the TYP LLC. Wow. So he really went full throttle with everything. And he told me, he said, listen, bro, if you want me to go full strength with this music stuff, I need you to go full strength with this basketball and TYP stuff. So I said, all right, cool. I'm like, how can we do that? He's like, yo, we got to make merch. We got to be able to make merch, get it out to the community, and you have to sell the message.
Yep.
So I'm like, how do we do that? Because I'm new to this. So we sat down for a couple of months and we spoke. And funny story, it was my first scrimmage game against Merchant Marine at Brooklyn.
I know Merchant Marine very well, sure. The Skyline Conference, a conference I cover very well. Yep, sure. Go ahead.
My first ever 4-year scrimmage at Brooklyn College. It was at Brooklyn. I'm just inviting friends out. At this time, I sold my first Trust Your Process sweater to a teammate of mine, Jordan Scott Wright. My very first. We took a picture of it. I posted it on Instagram, and I think about 50 people ended up buying the same sweater that Jordan had on.
Wow.
Right after that. So now the name is getting out there. I gifted all of my coaches at Brooklyn College a TYP hoodie. So now they're in practice with their TYP hoodies on. We also had a photographer. Her name was Anna. So she would take pictures for us in practice. So when I used to get those pictures from her of my coaches in the TYP hoodies, I would post it up online. Now other coaches are hitting me up. We had one of my former coaches from BMCC. He was the women's coach, Coach Ben Newberg.
Yep.
He reached out to me and bought a hoodie. So now I had another person at another school rocking the hoodie because they saw that my coaches were a part of the plan. So back to the Merchant Marine story. I invited a couple of friends out. It's a scrimmage game. I'm nervous because it's my first time playing at Brooklyn College with my new teammates.
Yep.
At that time, we already had one game at Sarah Lawrence. And
okay, I know Sarah Lawrence, also another Skyline Conference team, sure.
I stunk it up. When I tell you I stunk it up, I stunk it up. Like, literally, I stunk it up. I didn't speak to anybody on the way back home. But I told myself, when we play Merchant Marine in 2 days, I'm going to make sure that I do the things that I need to do to be better prepared. Sure. So a couple of my friends came out. I wasn't starting for Brooklyn my junior year. I just want to put that out there. I wasn't starting.
I remember very well. Yeah. In covering you, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it was a couple minutes into the game, and my friends are chanting my name in the crowd, stuff like that. So coach puts me in the game. I get in the game. I get a bucket. Right after that bucket, I get fouled. I'm at the foul line now, and all I'm hearing is TYP, TYP. So listen, brother, I'm on the free throw line. Keep in mind, I'm supposed to be locked in.
Sure.
It caught me so off guard. I looked to my left. I saw Omar, and he was doing the same exact thing as me. Like, what's going on here? So I knocked down both of the free throws. I ended up having 38 points that game. Like, hearing those TYP chants in the crowd,
it fueled you. It fueled
me. It boosted my energy, and I was like, "Yo, we're doing it. Like, we're almost there." So I had a conversation with Omar after the game, and I just told him, like, how did that feel? He was like, "Bro, I started tearing instantly because it's like all of the things that we've spoken about, you're bringing to life," and that honestly made me feel good because I know how much work I was putting in, like being a full-time student, being a full-time basketball player.
Oh, at the D3 level, I mean, it's very hard. I mean, people don't realize. People think, oh, you're in the NCAA. Obviously, my buddy is Brad Weiss, who played at SJLI.
Okay.
So, I mean, I know the whole deal very well. I mean, you have to get up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. You know, you had Coach Baptiste. I know Coach Baptiste very well. You know, you had to get up, make sure you were ready in class. You know, practices usually in West Quad were probably at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then you had to go maybe do film session. Then, oh, by the way, you had to figure out how to make sure you did your homework, did your paper, and if you might have even had a full-time or a part-time job at somewhere in that, and then you had family to deal with. So, I mean, that being a D3 athlete, I mean, I have been talking about it for almost my entire 5 years on the air, whether it's been through podcast, video, you name it. People do not realize how difficult the job that you had in Brooklyn College. They do not know at all.
And just to piggyback on what you said, being a Division III athlete is so difficult because, you know, we don't have scholarships or whatever the case may be.
Nope.
I didn't receive financial aid because there was something wrong with my information.
Your FAFSA form.
Yeah, my FAFSA form, I didn't receive, so I had to pay out of pocket. And here's the kicker. I had literally the best job ever before I started playing at Brooklyn College. I was working for Nike. Right?
I knew you were a winner. Listen, I knew you were a winner following you. But I mean, geez, what else have you done? What haven't you done, I should say?
I was working for Nike Soho. I was the basketball manager.
Yeah, sure.
Basketball manager. We had the basketball court, and literally I would just go to work and work out. And
I remember, I know that right on Broadway, right off Prince Street.
Yep.
I knew very well, sure.
I sacrificed that. I quit my job because I said, you know what? I want to be able to make a difference here at Brooklyn. And the reason I said that, I knew about Brooklyn College, but they had a very rough 2 to 3 years before I got there.
Yes. After the 16 team, that team with Pops and obviously Exxon John Balaz, Coach Gist, those players all graduated. So McAuliffe, those 2 years that before you came there, they kind of went to almost a rebuilding phase. So it wasn't like you were coming in right after the 15 and 16 teams where they were like, everybody was coming into West Quad. It was almost like they were prime time. No, you were coming there when the program was kind of like still in this kind of finding itself phase.
I'll be honest with you. When I committed to Brooklyn was kind of on like a downhill.
Yes, correct.
They had won the previous year. Don't quote me, but I believe they only won about 4 games. Then the year before that, I think they only won about 2 to 3 games. But I'm not too sure. But I do know that they weren't the same team that they were in 2016.
No, not at all. No, those teams that they had in 2014, 15, 2015, 16, those teams were prime time, and this is not what you were going into. No, not at all.
So that's why I went to my brother Omar, and I honestly told him, like, listen, bro, this decision right here is not the most popular decision. Not a lot of people are going to be, yeah, he's going to Brooklyn College. I spoke to my brother Omar and my brother Errol. Errol's my blood brother. He raised me. He put the basketball in my hand. And when I told him about it, it made me feel good because they basically told me, like, listen, if this is something that you want to do, especially for TYP and yourself, then why not? You grew up 2 stops away from Brooklyn College. You've had a visitor pass in your house since 2009 from Brooklyn College. It just makes sense. So I said, if this is something that I'm going to do, I'm going to need you guys' support. And they said, you don't even have to ask. So when I came to Brooklyn College, that was basically my mindset. I'm like, you know what? If I can turn this program around and bring it back to what it used to be in 2016, that's only going to help the community, one, help TYP, and it's going to allow me to build my name, and I'm going to be able to network more. I've met the most genuine, hardworking people during my time at Brooklyn College. So and it's funny because when I posted about me going to Brooklyn College, just what I thought. Everybody was hitting me up on the side because they didn't want to comment it, but they was like, why did you go to Brooklyn? You could have went anywhere else. And I was just like, you'll see one day. One day you'll see. And best believe when we won that championship in 2020.
I watched you that one day. I was going to say, I watched you in the CUNY X semifinals, and that's where everybody you said 2 years ago was like, why did you go there? Well, you definitely proved them wrong there, and it's kind of what you've done with TYP. And, I have to come back to that because I could talk to you all day about Brooklyn College and all that stuff, but I want to really speak still in the current. And being on News 12, what did that do for you? last year in terms of still building that, because you can't replicate earned media. You got
Yes.
the greatest form of earned media that there is in being on News 12. Anybody that is from Brooklyn, Kings County, watches News 12. You were on News 12. Talk to me about what that did for the program.
Man, I get kind of emotional when I think about it, because I've been on News 12 before, but it was more of a team aspect.
Yep.
Like with Transit, BMCC, when we were went to the championship game or whatever the case may be, and even at Brooklyn. But when I was on News 12, Tom, it was just like a sign of relief. Like, all right, like people are watching. I'm gonna be able to attract a different crowd. Like, I'm not just gonna be stagnant with the people just in my community. Now everyone is gonna be able to see. So when I saw the clip came out when I was unpacking that same night from TYP Day, and people,
wow.
my phone is ringing. I'm like, yo, what's going on? My mom texts me like, baby, you're on News 12. So, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I turn on the TV and I'm just like, whoa, this is insane. Like, and when they walked into the park, I was honestly baffled. I'm just like, you guys here for me? Like, what's this about? They gave me the interview. I made sure that I showed love to the people who needed to be shown love, because I would be a hypocrite if I sit up here and say everything that has to do with TYP is coming from me. And it's honestly not. I'm the voice of TYP. I founded it, but there are also helping hands that have played a major role into why TYP is what it is today. So the News 12 clip, yeah, I was highlighted. I was very thankful. I was very grateful for them coming out. But that was my thank you to everyone else who's helped me along the way. So definitely being on News 12 was a heartwarming moment.
Oh, and it definitely was. It was a phenomenal video. And if you want to support and all do the great things that are Trust Your Process TYP, you can follow Coach on Instagram at TYP_ANTT. Facebook, we've also put the handle there. So if you want to go and join in, you want to go help in any way possible, you can do that, because I have a feeling that 2024 will be even bigger than the tournament was this year, and even 22, 21. And obviously going into that, then, I mean, with the success this year of the tournament, and next year, I'm sure you're already working on next year's tournament now almost, right? Because it's already like we're going into another cycle. So do you want to talk about that also for the audience?
So this may not be the thing that the audience wants to hear, but as far as next year, right now, in the position that we're in right now, we're going to be putting the tournament on hold only because we've had a great turnout all 3 years. There was nothing wrong to the point where
I mean, you were even going outside of Brooklyn. I noticed you were going into Staten Island, actually, not too far.
Yep.
Yeah, for
and
me,
this is what I'm about to get to. Yep. So when we finished this year, we said we want to branch out. We want to do a little bit more. We gave Brooklyn a tournament for 3 years, so they know that we're here no matter what. We've gave Brooklyn a tournament. So the idea for next year, and you're actually the first person that's going to hear this.
Uh-oh.
The idea for next year is we're going to be doing our park tour, how we did this year. So it's going to be TYP versus Kingdom, TYP versus Dykeman, TYP versus Staten Island, TYP versus Queens. We're going to be doing things like that, of that nature, with the both men and women. That's our main thing. Then we're also going to be sponsoring a lot of tournaments. So we want to be able to help Staten Island get the respect that they deserve when it comes to basketball, because that's a borough that nobody talks about, and they think that there aren't any hoopers. And there's a lot of hoopers out there.
A lot of CUNY players. A lot of players from CUNY came from Staten Island, sure.
Yep. So the main thing on our list right now for TYP next year, we're going to be going to Rumble in the Jungle. It's owned by my guy Stan, my big bro Stan. And we're going to be helping him out. We're going to be assisting him in anything that he needs. We're basically going to be giving back to other boroughs as well. Like Brooklyn, we're going to give back to Brooklyn regardless. But we want to be able to branch out and go to Queens, go to Staten Island, go to Harlem. Because our experience in Harlem this summer was amazing. Like, it was amazing. They showed nothing but love. Shout outs to Kingdom.
And you mentioned Dykeman, which is actually one of my friends actually owns the New York Harlem Underdogs, which also owns the Lady Underdogs. And they actually played, the Lady Underdogs team played some of their games at Dykeman this
Dykeman, yep.
summer. Yep.
So I was in contact with Dykeman this summer, but it was kind of too late. So we couldn't really schedule anything for this year.
Okay.
But they told me, listen, next year we're going to talk early and we're going to get it done. So
yeah, Dykeman's that's a good park to play in. So to be able to go out there and have that's going to be, I think, really, really cool and such. And speaking of people that have been influential, and I have to bring them up because we were speaking about this off the air, and I did want to bring it up while we have time because I realized I could ask you so many questions, and I want to be respectful of your time. And I want to talk.
Brother. You're good. You're good.
Well, let me talk about Kevon Baker, first of all. Kevon Baker, who in a lot of ways, I know you spoke about your brother, you spoke about your blood brother as well, but Kevon Baker really is one of those other people that we have to mention here. And, Kevon's a guy I actually know from Brooklyn College also. And I was like, wait a minute. I know him. I've watched him play also. Another guy that was a 1,000-plus point scorer. He was a great player for a while there in Brooklyn College. Yes. And he was a very, very special player. And, I mean, talk to me what he's meant to you and everything that you've done, not only here in Brooklyn on the court, but now especially with TYP, Trust Your Process.
Man, this is a topic that we could talk about for hours. When we talk about influence outside of my immediate family, like my brother Errol and Omar, whatever the case may be,
Sure.
This man is on the top of the pedestal, and I'm going to tell you why. When nobody gave me a chance, Coach Baker did. When everybody else clowned me, Coach Baker didn't. So I remember coming from a game in 2015. I was coming from one game, and the guy on the mic, he's making fun of me. He's making fun of how I look or whatever the case may be. And I was defeated. I just had a good game, and he wasn't focused on the game. He was more focused on like bashing a kid. And so I'm on the bus, I'm on my way to Kevon's tournament, loyal to the game, Summer League. It's right there in Naz Park and Harry May's playground.
Yeah, I know them. I know them very well, sure.
So I'm on my way over there. I'm sad. I'm defeated. I'm just like, damn, like I didn't even do anything to this man. I don't even know him. But cool. So I was playing for Brothers from Another at the time, in LTG. We're undefeated at the time. I get to the tournament. Actually, this was in 2016. I had committed to Brooklyn College. To BMCC already. Okay. I had committed to BMCC. Coach Baker has never been on the mic, from my knowledge. From when I was playing in his tournament, he's never been on the mic. I believe this was playoffs, and we're in the game. I'm just trying to lock in, forget about what went on. And during the game, he gets on the mic and he goes, Anthony McClean, everybody watch out for that boy. He's going to BMCC next year. And I'm just like, hey, keep in mind, bro. Keep in mind, brother. On my team, I have Division I players. I'm playing against Division I players. I'm playing with guys that have a better basketball resume than I do at that moment. Sure. And just to know that I went through what I went through a couple of hours ago, and Coach Baker took the time out to shout me out in front of a packed crowd and made me feel good about being in his tournament, the connection with him and I grew instantly right there. I remember going to him after. I said, listen, I appreciate you doing that. And his response was, doing what? Because he's genuinely just like that. Like, he shows love. He can tell when somebody's overlooked or underlooked in sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? He has a very good eye for that. So he can tell, like, all right, this kid is really good, but nobody's going to give him a chance. So him saying what he said that day, it really just opened my heart. And I'm just like, yeah, this is a guy that I got to stay close with. So I kept in contact with Coach Baker, right? And this is where the influence part comes into play.
Okay.
Coach Baker randomly, I had committed to Brooklyn, but the only reason I got to Brooklyn College is because Coach Baker hit me up on Facebook Messenger one day. Like, what's school looking like for you? I was already done with BMCC at the time. I had no schools to go to. He's like, what do you want to do for a profession? I'm like, I want to stay close to basketball. He said, what do you think about physical education? I said, why not? Like, I don't mind being a phys ed teacher. So he's like, why not go to Brooklyn? So I'm like, I've reached out to the coach. He hasn't responded to me or whatever. He was like, give me 1 second. I get a phone call from Coach McCalliff.
Yeah, because that was right before he decided to step down. Yep.
I get a call from Coach McCalliff. Hey, Anthony, this is Coach from Brooklyn College. I've heard some good things about you. I'm going to send my assistant coach to come and watch you because it was the playoff time at BMCC. I'm going to take my assistant coach, tell him to come and watch you. The assistant coach was Coach Jeff, Jean Baptiste.
Yep.
I committed. So let's say it was a Wednesday that coach came to my game, the semifinals game against Queensboro. I committed that Friday to Brooklyn College. Yeah, wow. I didn't even waste any time. And I just told Coach Baker, like, yo, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Without you, I wouldn't even have gotten the opportunity because I could understand as a college coach how many emails you get from players. So at the time, I'm thinking that Coach McCallum just doesn't want me. But when he showed me his inbox, it's like he has 1,000 emails. And I can't be mad at that. But the fact that Coach Baker knew what I stood for and he believed in me and believed in my process, he reached out, put his name on the line, and then
well, I think it also helps that, listen, Coach Baker was a pretty good player at Brooklyn also. And Richie McCallum, for a long time, was the all-time leading scorer in Brooklyn College and played on a team that went to the Final Four. So, I mean, I could certainly see some of the different things that kind of led into place. And obviously, Coach Baker thankfully brought you to Brooklyn because Brooklyn obviously comes back and wins that CUNYAC in 2020. And we'll definitely talk about that. But I also wanted to talk about Coach Alsey, who was also very influential to you. And I wanted to, for the audience, also, especially for those that are hearing this, talk about also his influence in you and who you are right now as this a very, very influential person.
Wait, which coach did you say? I'm sorry.
Wenley Alsey.
Oh, Wenley wasn't a coach. Wenley was he was a player at the time.
Right, but he was influential currently at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's obviously, I want you to talk about that.
So with Wenley, it's a funny story, right? So I was in Brooklyn College in 2018. I used to go to the rec center before practice, before class or whatever. So I used to hoop in the rec center. And I saw this big kid, and I'm just like, "You play basketball?" He's like, "Nah, I don't play ball. I like playing basketball, but it's not something that I do. I'm on the soccer team here." So I'm like, all right, I just let it go over my head. We ended up playing in rec, and this dude is killing. And I'm like, yo. So I went up to him after. I said, bro, you're not a soccer player. It's no way. It's absolutely no way that you're a soccer player, bro. No disrespect to soccer at all. But
Sure.
I really feel like you can be very beneficial to what we have going on here at Brooklyn College. Like, literally, I feel like you have the tools to be really good here. And I believe, I'm not too sure if it was 2018 or 2020. I believe it was the 2019-2020 season.
Yes.
That I was in rec. Yeah. Believe it or not, I called Coach Jeff. I said, listen, Coach, this guy has to be on the team. Like, I'm never going to ask you for any favors. I'm always going to be the guy to go and earn it. But I'm really asking you for this favor. I understand that we already have 15 guys, but please, can you give this guy a chance? Coach said, all right, cool, no problem. And gave him a chance. Wenley looked awful the first couple of practices. Awful. And I'm
Coach is probably like, what'd you do to us, Anthony?
I'm looking at him like, damn, you're making me look bad. But one thing about Wenley that kept him on the team, I always tell people, it's not about talent. It's about how hard you're going to work and the type of character that you bring with yourself. So Wenley would bust his tail every single sprint, even if he didn't make it. And I used to stay back with him. Like I would make my sprint and still run with Wenley and motivate him. Yeah. Wow. Like that's how tight Wenley and I were. So when he wouldn't make it, you know, he would get defeated about it, but he would always tell himself like, Ant, watch, I'm going to get this. Believe it or not, I want to say in about a month or so, Wenley is making his time. Wenley is making the runs. He's making the 10-second sprints. He's making the suicides. He's making the 17s. And his body is starting to form now. It's moving. He transitioned from because Wenley was kind of a bigger guy at the time.
Yeah, I remember him a little bit. Yeah, he was
kind of bigger at the time. But you can tell by every single day that he was coming to practice, he was slimmed down a little bit more. And now he was able to put in his best foot forward every single practice because his body started to change and he was paying attention to his body. And then on top of that, Wenley wasn't only working out while he was in practice. Like Wenley was doing stuff outside of Brooklyn College practices, which made him into the player that he was. So he's influential to me because he's a true definition of what trust your process stands for, because nobody else believed in him. And when I say nobody else, I mean the people outside of the team. Like when he told people that he was on the team or whatever, people started laughing or whatever the case may be. But we always believed in him, and he believed in himself, and he
But
played a
those are the
major role.
guys that you need in order to be a successful team. Because I speak with a lot of the different coaches all the time. You know, I spoke with a lot of people in the Skyline Conference, the CUNY. Brad Weiss, obviously, is like you going into a journey of coaching, and he's coaching now at the high school level on Long Island. And, you know, we're friends with a lot of the guys on the St. Joseph's Long Island team. I've done a lot of work with John Jay in the past. You need those guys like a Wenley. You need them because in practice, they make you more competitive.
Yes.
They make you want to
Yes.
go out there and be a better
Yes.
player because without those guys pushing you to try to take your minutes, take your spot, you know, you're not going to have that success in those games. And that's why you guys had the success that you had. And we are here speaking of success, the definition of success. He is the man that makes dreams into a reality. His name is Anthony McClean, a man who has won 2 championships in 2 different schools, the man that has really done it all. He has been an MVP in the CUNYAC. He has really been somebody that is doing big things, but his biggest role yet is with the Trust Your Process, where he is the man, the founder of it, and they are going to go on to even bigger things right now. That's why you need to follow them in the links below. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, the man behind Sportswire Radio. We're going to have college basketball coverage later this week because I'll be speaking with a guy that actually called some of the games from Anthony McClean, Mr. John Perez. John used to call those games. Yeah, John has been on my show a lot. Yeah, yep, John is going to be on here, and I think depending on when this airs, I think you'll be first. And John is obviously doing some work now for a company called Varsity Media, and I've known John for a long time, and John's going to talk about some different things. I'll probably share a thought or two on you along with the brute force Brad Weiss. So it'll be a while because I haven't had John on in about maybe about 2 years. So it'll be a good time to catch up with him. Yeah, This Is Your Life, and we're going to talk with John, and I look forward to resuming college basketball coverage because as we see now, people are starting to go and have workouts again. They're getting ready for the season. Yep. In fact, schedules in the CUNY and the Skyline, depending on your school, have actually been released already because the brute force and I on our show on Sportswire Radio, which you can catch in the link below, they have actually been released, and our St. Joe's boys are getting ready for their season, and the CUNY, everybody else, Brooklyn, John Jay, they'll start right around the same time. In fact, York and St. Joe's, Long Island is November the 8th, and we'll see some other action right around that, and we'll be talking about it all throughout the season, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player and follow us on Instagram at the Sports Report 2021, but we're here now with the legendary Anthony McClean. Now, Coach, I have to bring this up because it's probably the best I bring it up now because I do want to spend a few minutes on Brooklyn before, obviously, we get a chance to let you say a farewell for the day. But something happened to you not too long ago with this company called Uber. And for the audience, I feel like it is important to bring up because when I heard about it on Instagram and I saw your Instagram video about it, I was like, did that really happen? So for the audience that's watching and listening, can you tell us about what happened with a recent experience with Uber?
So Wingate and I, we had a game at BCAM High School.
Okay.
After the game, I walked from BCAM, I got some food, and then I walked all the way over to Nostrand and Fulton. And then
I know Nostrand and Fulton, sure.
I got on the train to my stop, but the bus that I had to take, it was out of service, so I had to get into a cab. So I walked for a little bit, I called the cab, and me personally, when I get into the cabs, before I get into the cab, I check the license plate in the front and the back. I make sure that it has a license plate in both front and back. When I get into the car, I say my name automatically. I say, it's Anthony, good afternoon, good night, good morning, whatever the case may be. And I make sure that I can see that their phone has my name on it. So that's my check-in. I always sit in the middle. I never sit behind the driver or on the far right or far left, or whatever the case may be. I always sit in the middle so that I can be aware of what's going on the street. just to make sure if my driver, God forbid, falls asleep, I'm able to tap him or her or whatever. So I got into the car. He said good afternoon to me. He checked for my name, my regular routine. So I had my headphones on, but I never play music and I never watch videos while I'm in the car. I just always put my headphones on just to put it on. So at the time I was on my phone editing a TYP post. And I was like, you know what? Let me just get this out the way right now and call it a day. As I'm getting it down, I see him write my name in a book. He has like a composition notebook, like the black and white ones that you get when you're in school.
Yeah, I remember those.
So I'm just thinking like, all right, cool. He's just writing my name. That's fine. I go back to doing what I'm doing. Now we reach a red light. He's writing my address down in this book. So I take my headphones off and I said, sir, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but why did you just write my name and my address down in this book? Now, when I looked over again, he's on the last page of the book and he has about 1,000 names. And it wasn't really 1,000, but I'm just saying 1,000 because he was on the last page of his book.
Okay, makes sense. I could see that. All right.
Like I was literally the last line. And I said, sir, why do you have people's names and addresses in this book? I'm confused. He said, to his defense, it's just in case I don't get paid from Uber. I said, okay, cool. We live in 2023. Everything is digital now. If you don't get paid from Uber, you can
contact them on their customer service.
My point exact. And on your app, it shows you all of your past rides. But what your past rides doesn't show you is my exact address. So you don't need my exact address in order for you to get paid. This is why this is sketchy. So now for the people watching, and this is something that everybody needs to understand. When you get into the cab, the only time that they can see your exact address is during the ride. That's the
right, because they're driving you to the destination.
They're driving you to your destination. Once that ride is ended, the only thing that they can see are your cross streets and your zip code. That's it. They can't see that you live in apartment 3C or you live on Eastern Parkway in Fulton, 2225. Like they can't see that. They can't see a house address, nothing of that nature. So him writing down my exact address plus my zip code and like the area that I live in was super sketchy to me. So when I brought it to his attention, the only thing that he kept telling me was don't worry about it. So when I told him like, listen, sir, this is my life. And on top of that, you have other people's addresses in here. I don't know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what you're a part of. I'm not trying to assume, but this looks very bad. I said, if there were 3 intoxicated women in this car right now, would you be writing their address down? Or if you did write their address down, what do you think they would do if they noticed that? Don't worry about it. That's not you. So that's when I started to get a little angry. I'm like, sir, what do you mean it's not me? I have a mother that I just put in a cab this morning for her to go to work.
Sure.
So imagine if she was in the car with you. You know what I'm saying? So that was basically the gist of it. I had spoke to the police. There was nothing that the police could have done because he didn't commit a crime and it was way over their head, which is fine, cool. I spoke with a couple of people that were detectives or former NYPD, and they told me to just bring awareness to it. So, and I'm not a guy that really likes to stand in front of the camera.
And you said that in the video, but this to me, and I'm going to jump in if you don't mind, because this is bizarre. This is bizarre because, I mean, I've never heard this before, and I actually am a notary public, and I don't write, let's say I have somebody that I have to go, let's say, certify somebody's document, or I get them from time to time. I don't have a book of these people where I can say, hey, well, this is, I mean, I'm technically supposed to, but I don't do it because most of the time I know the people. So there really is no reason that you'd have this information. Now, is the person trying to defraud you and others? I mean, that would be my first thought, is that, okay, I'm writing your information down to look you up, maybe to try to defraud you on a credit card or send you some information, So I don't blame you for how you feel, Coach, because you don't, in this day and age, if I'm an Uber driver, all I need to do is drive you to where you live. And you want to pay whatever the way you pay through that, and you get a tip, and that's move on. And thank you very much. Have a nice day. I mean, this really, to me, you don't need a notebook and to write down the person's name You don't need that. I mean, so this is really bizarre. And I hope that Uber, you certainly pay attention to this. And I hope that customer service is notified going further, because obviously this driver, which, oh, by the way, depends on, let's say, a 5 each time he's given. Well, I think that if you're going to continue to do this, Mr. Driver, I would assume it's a Mr., don't give this guy a 5 each time, because if he's continuing to write people's names in a book, that's bizarre. I mean, that's a really bizarre thing, and we definitely don't trust that process there on that.
I like that.
I tried.
One crazy thing though about it is when I posted the video, right? It went viral on TikTok, it went viral on Instagram. My problem with certain people was the fact that they tried to change the narrative on me. They tried to say I should have took the book. I did try to take the book. They said I should have spoke to the cops. I did speak to the cops. When I tried to take the book, he was reaching. And I have a second part of the video that I never posted because he was reaching for something in his vehicle. So when I saw that, I said, you know what? Let me just back off and take it the legal route. I'm going to talk to the cops. And then if I don't speak to the cops, then I'm going to make the video. Then when I posted the video and I posted a picture of his license plate and his photo ID, I got 2 phone calls from 2 females that I'm very close with and said, I just had that driving. He did the same thing to me. And I approached him about it. Literally.
Well, I think, look, and to be fair, you can't really go and take his book with really it's his property, and you're on the video, so Uber, he's a TLC worker, you're on the video, so you really can't do that. Really, you handled it. Of course I understand. I'm a notary public. So, I mean, I do this stuff all the time. So I notarize people's documents. I go through the process. People ask me legal help because I actually am a lawyer without being a lawyer. So you really couldn't do anything other than basically, say hello, introduce yourself. You didn't have to do that, but you did. You went in there, you were just you. So you were keeping quiet as a passenger. And, you obviously paid the individual, and that was it. You spoke with him and, you asked him a question. He answered it the way he wanted to. And, there really wasn't anything that you could have done about it. And obviously you went to the authorities and they gave their answer as to what they thought or what they could do in their jurisdiction. So ultimately, at the end of the day, going forward, now I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but obviously that's going to be up to you and what you decide. But ultimately, that's on Uber. So really what should be done going forward is contacting Uber to say, you know what, this shouldn't happen. There should be some type of, in their, let's say, their bylaws or their standards and practices, some type of things that you as a passenger of rights, your passenger bill of rights almost could maybe say, is this legal? Is this not legal? So those are things that I'm not going to answer here because obviously I'm sure that somebody can handle that, and something was leaving a little bit more of a jurisdiction on me. But obviously in the second half of our show, and I realize again the only a lot of time I have with you, I did want to come back though to the fact that you have won a CUNYAC, on a lighter note, by the way, you have won a CUNYAC in 2 different schools. That's rarefied air. You are the true definition of a winner. What does that mean to you to have won a CUNYAC in 2 different schools?
When I noticed that it could be a thing, I was very excited because I wasn't sure in the past history that anybody has done it. I'm not too sure. But I know it was rare.
It's very rare. I mean, I had thought about it, and I probably should ask somebody who's done some public address work, Mr. Daniel Weiss, the Brooklyn Cowbell. But I don't, that I know of in recent memory, know anybody that was in 2 different CUNYs and won a championship there. It's very rare.
That accomplishment was something that, and it sounds cheesy, but it was honestly in my bucket list. I had it written down when I first committed to Brooklyn. I said, because at the time I didn't know if anybody else did it, but I did say I wanted to be the first person to win a championship on the junior college level in CUNY and also on the 4-year level in CUNY. Right. So when I realized that it was coming to life, it was honestly like, wow, everything that I'm saying, I'm really manifesting it, and I'm putting in the work. I'm putting in the time. I'm sacrificing a lot, and the reward was always bigger. So, when we won at BMCC, keep in mind, my team at BMCC was insane.
Oh, you had what? Karan Dublin, a guy I know very well, right? Divine Chisholm. I mean, you had some superstars. I mean, you were a team that was like Brooklyn in 15 and 16. I mean, you guys were like, the lights would put on and you guys would basically shine on the brightest stage.
I believe we could have competed in the 4-year level at that moment because the team that we had, Terrell Fullerton, Curtis Smith, Alex Humphreys, Victor, like we had a team, Ray Bond. Our team was insane. My boy Mark, like I could just keep going on and on.
Yeah, Terrell
about
Fullerton,
that
another
team.
player I saw very well do a lot of things on the court when he went to a 4-year school in York. So sure,
So
absolutely.
when we won at BMCC, it was really it was like I said, it was a thank you to everybody that was with me during that process. It was a thank you to my big brother Errol. It was a thank you to my mom. It was a thank you to my family, to everybody who supported me. And then when we went to Brooklyn, I don't want to say one championship made me feel better than the other because they were both really good. But when I won at Brooklyn with my team, it just felt more community based because
Well,
it
you
was
guys were also underdogs too. I think that there's sometimes in sports,
Mhm.
you look at it and like people look at when the Giants won the Super Bowl twice in recent memory, they beat the Patriots. People are like, well, they were underdogs. And you guys really were the underdog team that year. John Jay was 20 wins and they were, they had three of the best players and one of them still playing professionally and Jason Brower and Doug Levy's at Northwestern. You guys were like heavy underdogs going into that. And that's, I think, in some ways, you can't say one is better than the other, but, winning in Brooklyn, again, because I've had guys
Yeah.
on who've won in Brooklyn past, in the 16 and the Final Four team. I know all those guys that got honored. I mean, winning at Brooklyn is like a big deal, winning at Brooklyn.
Man, Tom, the crowd was electrifying. It was a lot of people in attendance. And that was another moment where people were screaming TYP. And it was just like, wow, like they're saying thank you to me because I gave them something to look forward to. And so like the championship at Brooklyn, it was honestly like I cried for probably 2 days straight.
I saw the photos.
Yeah. So you see it.
I was there in the semifinals. A lot of John Jay fans cried. I mean, so
Yeah.
you sent them home in tears.
I'm cutting the net off and I'm literally in tears. I'm just like, yo, what's happening right now? And then they named me MVP and I'm just like, wow. And my teammates, I don't want to go off topic, but I have to say this. My teammates were so supportive of me that entire season. Tom, we went through the worst of the worst that year. Besides being the underdogs, when I tell you life was taking a toll on all of us, my brother Noah Shy.
Yep, I know Noah Shy very well.
His mother passed away in January 2nd of 2020. 2020, yes. She passed away. Noah never missed practice a day in his life. Noah was gone for about three to four practices, and then coach broke it down to us what happened. We all broke down. So I immediately said, you know what, we're going to make some shirts for Noah, and I don't care what our athletic director at the time had to say. But
yeah, I know you're right. I know your former athletic director. No comment.
No comment at all. Good guy, but
no comment.
I said, I don't care what he says. We're gonna wear these shirts for Noah's mom. So we got the shirts made. Rest in peace to Mary, with the date that she was born, the date that she passed away, and it was something for us to look forward to. You know what I'm saying? We went to Noah's mom's funeral one day. We missed practice. We didn't even go to practice, and then we played Baruch the next day, and we still won. Like that's how.
That was a good Baruch team. What you saw again later on in the playoffs. Very good team.
Very good. That's how locked in we were, and that's how close we were as a family. Then, remember the semifinals game against John Jay?
I was there. Of course I do. That was at the game.
My aunt was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, my God.
And so Noah and I really became super, super close because we used to vent to each other about his mom's situation and my aunt's situation. So he knew what was going on. So she told me, I had gave her my bed for like 4 months. I would let her sleep on my bed. I was sleeping on the couch in my living room for 4 months. Keep in mind, going to practice, a long day. Sure. I got to sleep on my couch. Cool. I did it for my aunt. She told me before the John Jay game, she said, no, after the John Jay game, she was like, baby, hold on. I'm going to hold on for you until after you win that championship. I want to see you win. We won the championship. We went to the national tournament. The day we lost in the national tournament, she passed away.
Oh, my God.
She passed away. Then the next day is when they announced COVID.
So, I remember that actually because while you guys were in the NCAA tournament that day, John Jay was playing and kind of the consolation prize,
The
which was the
ECAC.
E-Factor. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I remember like somebody in campus, because I went to the game, because I kind of had a feeling this could be it. So I went anyway, and they said, well, there's this thing called the coronavirus. And I was like, oh, you're talking about the beer. And then I did an interview with another college the next day, where they really announced everything shutting down. It was a coach that I do a lot of work with at Five Towns College. And, we did
Very
the
good.
interview. When we started the interview, it was no talk about the world shutting down. When I got off the phone with him and we finished the interview, the Knicks and Hawks, that was it. That was the last game of any sort. Anybody
Yeah.
was playing anything, and that was it.
Yeah.
So it was like, that you guys were kind of like almost like a trivia thing, because for a while that was it. That was the last minute of any people could go sit and watch an organized game, and that's why you guys didn't get honored for so long. It was funny, you and the 40th anniversary team from the Final Four, you guys both, I think, got inaugurated this past year, and it was supposed to have happened a long time prior to that. I mean, what was that like, though, then at least getting inaugurated there, finally getting the ceremony and all that stuff with you guys? I know it was the 1981 team. It was the same thing. They had to wait for a while. And those guys I know very well. Danny Burns is a very good friend of mine. Obviously, McAuliffe I know, and Ed De La Guardia. And in fact, they just unfortunately lost one of their players, Rick the Rejector Davis. But so what was that like then, finally getting the ceremony last year?
We were super grateful. We were thankful for it. Everybody was thankful. But when we all took that team pick, we just looked at each other like, damn, it doesn't feel the same. You know what I mean? Like, we've been so far gone. Like, Michael Tesserello, he's a firefighter.
Yeah,
now.
I know, Michael.
Noah Shai, he's a very high-end basketball trainer. Jordan, he's a teacher. Wendley, he's big time in Nike. I'm doing my coaching stuff, and it's just like, it just didn't feel the same. Like, it just, but
the 2.5 years feels like 20, because you guys are so removed from everything. And at the D3 level, it's like, okay, you guys won, but they move on. They don't,
at the time, the person in charge, the ceremony just felt kind of rushed. Like, it was all right, Anthony McClean, Noah Shai, Jordan Scott. And then, all right, guys, get off the court. We got a game to take care of.
And I feel like that, how can I say this without being, because I still do a lot of work with some of these schools. How can I say this very kindly? I feel like if you were at another school that I have done some work with, they would have gave you guys the proper, in a way that would have been, let's say, where it would have been through social media. They would have hyped it up. They would have did all those things, because what you guys did really was very special, because you won a CUNYAC, and you did it really as like long shots. I mean, that was John. That was supposed to be Highland's moment. He had the players. This is what he recruited for. He had a trio of players. He had Kyle LaGuardia. I mean, he had a team, and that was it. He had Garrison Watkins off the bench, Romello Ford. That team was supposed to. You guys played off on their senior day, and they beat the stuffing out of you guys. And it was basically like, you guys should never have been there. And I think that's why the program, I could see where you did. But I will ask you, though, in terms of just in general, coming with the current team in a sense, what was it like playing, though, for Coach Jeff Baptiste?
Coach Jeff was the best coach that I've ever played for.
He's a good man. He's a good basketball man. I will tell you that much. I don't have to tell you.
I look at, even though I don't even look at him. I was never looking at him as a coach only. He was really a big brother and a mentor to me, because funny thing, right? Before I get into the story about Jeff, real quick story.
Okay. No, listen, it's your show.
When I committed to Brooklyn College, Coach Jeff was not the head coach yet.
Yes, it was McAuliffe.
Coach McAuliffe was. When Coach McAuliffe announced that he was resigning and he was going to coach
high school basketball in New Jersey. Yep.
I think for his daughter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Who now is playing college also, correct.
Coach Jeff, first words to me on my visit with him was, I don't want you to come here and be a facilitator. I don't want you to come here with the same type of game that you have at BMCC. I need you to be dominant, because we already have Michael Tesserello, who's going to facilitate and run the team. I'm not used to being a scorer at the time, but I looked at him and I said, I'm with it. Let's go. And from that moment on right there, I realized how direct and honest he was. I don't want a coach to lie to me just to get me into his program. Like, Coach Jeff was fine with telling me the most harsh truth and understanding that he may not get me, because that's may not what I wanted to hear, but he still said it to me. So I accepted that challenge. I'm super thankful that I did, because not only did I become a better basketball player, but I became a better man. I became a better man and a better businessman. The type of rooms that he put me in, the faith that he installed into me, because a lot of people don't know. My senior year, my first 9 games were horrendous. I was shooting 19% from the field.
I know you really turned it on the second half of that season. You went and basically you wound up, I would say, in the second half of that conference, off the top of my head, if you weren't leading the conference in scoring, you were like second or third. I mean, you were just that good. I mean, if it wasn't for Levy and Brower, you might have led the conference even in the second half in points per game.
Yeah, and because I had a conversation with Coach Jeff, and I told him, I'm like, yo, bro, like I suck. And he's like, listen, he was like, listen, he was like, I'm in a weird predicament, because my senior year at Brooklyn is basically like his sophomore year of school. And being that I went to a JUCO, I was robbed 2 years of being under Coach Jeff for those first 2 years of college. So he was like, my junior year, when I was leading CUNY in scoring, I was second in the country in 3-point percentage. Nobody knew of me on the 4-year level yet. So now that teams knew who I was, they scouted. They honestly picked my game apart to ways that I didn't even know that I was lacking, and it showed. And Coach Jeff basically broke it down to me. Just told me, like, look, this is what you need to do. I will never lie to you. I sat there. I did exactly what he told me to do, and like you said, I just turned it up a notch in the second half of the season.
And that's how you guys were able to go in there and make that run. You guys get into the playoffs, you get in there, and then you obviously, again, had very tough to win 3 games on the road is extremely difficult. You guys, that's why in some ways I look at it and say, the 2016 team, they were, like I said, like Showtime at the Apollo. They were supposed to win.
Yeah.
You obviously had, some of the teams that Padias had some success. Yeah, okay, they were supposed to win. Obviously everybody talks about the 1981 team, but again, they had superstar players. But you guys were kind of really, if you think about the program, the program the last 5 or 6 years, it hasn't had the same run, but that one championship you guys have kind of at least keeps the program and the franchise going. And I was curious, as I realized I've only got about 10 or 15 minutes of your time, I did have to ask you in terms of Tommy Guerin and Jeff Baptiste. Obviously, Tommy Guerin, a phenomenal Brooklyn player, and Tommy Guerin, obviously, close with a lot of those guys also. But, what was it like comparatively playing for Coach Guerin and Coach Baptiste? What was maybe like that, like similar and different?
So I can tell that Brooklyn College was one of the most prestige schools, because the way that they see the game, it was different for me. With Coach G, this man can draw up a play at any given moment. And I'm not a guy who can understand plays on the fly. I need to see it. But every time he drew it up on that clipboard, he made each and every person that was on that floor understand what their job was to do. And he put me in spots for me to be successful. He knew, because I led the country in 3-point percentage my freshman and sophomore year at BMCC. So he knew, like, all right, let's get in his spots so that he can be effective, because he knew I was going to play defense. He knew I was going to play hard.
You were a great two-way player. That's what I remember most. You were just, watching you at Brooklyn, you were just a phenomenal two-way player. I mean, you were
appreciate that, bro. So he knew that I was going to give him everything off of the defensive end. It was just about getting me in my right spots on offense. So playing for Coach G, I definitely learned a lot of X's and O's when it came to him. He was really big on that. Coach G, and the way he can just draw up plays for us, like in practice, plays that fit the team. So like my freshman year and sophomore year, we ran 2 totally different offenses, 2 totally different, because he knew, in JUCO it's hard because you get new players every single year.
I know, because you really only get a year with these players, because then it's already like, okay, I got to go somewhere else, or if I don't like the program, I have to go I know that very well. It's not easy. Going to JUCO.
He put us in positions for us to be great, like each and every single player. He put us in the spots that we needed to be in, not the spots that we wanted to, but the spots that he knew we needed to be in. And he was honestly just a good coach when it came to those aspects. Like he spoke to us off the court as well. He was very vocal. he would text us funny, corny jokes thinking that it was funny, but it really wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. And then playing for Coach Jeff, I just felt like Coach Jeff and I had a good connection with Coach G, but Coach Jeff and I, we had a connection where he understood me, like where I came from, if that makes any sense.
I could see that because I know Jeff a little more than Coach Guerin. I might have spoke to Coach Guerin maybe in the past once or twice, but I could see with Jeff because McAuliffe would talk a lot about Jeff when I interviewed McAuliffe, but I've also spoke to Jeff before off the air. Jeff is a true basketball man, and he is a Brooklyn College man. So I feel like when you speak with Jeff commands a certain type, not that Tommy Guerin doesn't, but Tommy Guerin's almost like a peer of yours in a sense because he's not that much older, if that makes sense. Whereas Jeff is almost like, and his brother, they're like basketball men. It's like they command a certain respect in the room. So I could see where
you say that because Coach G, now that I think of it, Coach G was a very young head coach.
Yeah, he was like, I want to say he left Brooklyn and maybe he was 5 years older than you, maybe something like that.
Yeah. I think Coach G was 26, 27 at the time.
Yeah, I don't think
something
he was
like that.
I don't think he was that much older than you. He had to have been because I think he graduated Brooklyn, I want to say in maybe 10. You were at BMCC 16, 17, 17, 18. So maybe 7 years, like you said. Yeah. So
it gave us a different type of swag when we walked into gyms though, because our head coach was super young and Coach G, he didn't take disrespect from anybody. So like any form of disrespect he thought that people were playing when it came to his team, he was backing us up.
Because he was probably on those courts and he's still in his mind is thinking, okay, I'm still a basketball player because he's not that far removed from it. Almost reminds me in a way, different personality when I've had Coach Gist on a few times, and Coach Gist is the same type of way. Again, love Coach. I mean, I have to ask you, do you have a Coach Gist story? Anything you want to share before I get to closing thoughts? Because I'd love to hear that because I know Coach, I will have Coach back on.
I do actually. And when you bring him back on, mention this to him. Ask him how long was he my basketball coach for? Coach Gist was my assistant coach. Nobody knew. But Coach Gist was my coach at BMCC for 1 week. Coach Gist came. He worked me out one time. And then he left and went to York with Coach Adams at the time.
Right, because he became the assistant.
He became the assistant,
and he took the job there. That's almost like when Bill Belichick was the head coach for the New York Jets. He was coach for the Jets for 1 week, and then he went to the Patriots, and then Coach Gist did the same thing. He was your coach for 1 week.
1 week, bro. But that was the best.
I will ask that.
Don't tell him. Just be like, yo, how long were you Anthony McClean's coach for? I want to see what he's gonna say.
I will. I owe him an appearance. I tried to get him on this past year, but he was kind of busy, and then we wound up doing a couple of other things. We had another guy on in the queue, and he's become one of my very good friends, Jason Gaudier, who was at CCNY. And so we've had him on a lot. So I have to get Coach Gist on, especially now that he's at Hunter. So obviously I will definitely do that. I realize I've only got a little bit of an allotted time left with you. So I wanted to ask you, in your career, you've done a lot of things. Is there one or two moments that stand out most?
Man, I got two things.
Okay.
I got two things. And we kind of touched up on one of them already.
Okay.
So Brooklyn College championship game, 2020. That moment stood out so much to me because when I hugged my mom and my brother and I told them this is exactly why I was coming home late from practice or I was coming home late from the gym, like this is my why and this is all for you guys. Like, and the smile, like my mom is not a smiler at all, but the smile she broke on that night of the championship game was just, it was amazing. Like even one of my boys, his name is Anthony Williams, AJ Williams. He plays in Australia. He took a flight out over here and came and watched me play for the championship game. So it was like, it was no way that we were losing that game. It was no way. It was no way. I couldn't do it. And then when I hugged my brother, like my brother Errol that put the basketball in my hand, we were just like bro, this is why when we was in the park and you made me play against these grown men and I was only 12 years old and I'm crying because they jammed my finger. This is the why right here. So that's definitely one moment that stood out for me. And then the second moment is when I have 41 points against Mega Evers.
Well, I was going to say, and I would like to get you back on at a different time because I only scratched the surface with you, but why were you so good against Medgar Evers? I mean, you had like your best games against them. I get it that they've been down in the CUNY for all these years. They're almost like, I shouldn't say this, but almost like the automatic win these days. But for whatever reason, you were just like had your greatest moments against them. I mean, was there something in the gym? Was it the jersey? I don't know. Like, why were you so good against them?
All right, so shout out to Coach Magro. I love him.
He's a good man.
He's a solid guy.
Yes, Brian.
He actually recruited me to come to Mega, but I chose Brooklyn over Mega. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure he's sorry too about it.
Yeah, I chose Brooklyn over Mega. But he's always been a solid guy, right? But it was just something about Mega, bro. I really don't know. It was just anytime I walked, their crowd was super disrespectful at the time.
Yeah, I've watched them on streams, and they're like a loud crowd. They are just a loud crowd.
I can take the, yelling at me, cursing at me, calling me stuff. Like, I could take that. I'm a grown man now at that time. I'm fine. But when it becomes deeper than basketball, that's when I start to say, all right, you're drawing the line. But funny thing is, I'm cool with a lot of Mega people, so it's nothing against them. But at that time, their crowd was horrendous because they had a very good player, Justin Sutton. I don't know if
Yes, I remember him. Yes, I do. Yes,
he was one of the best players in the conference. He even played professionally for a couple of years or whatever the case may be. So they had something to cheer for. But when they were cheering, they would say disrespectful things some moments. So I always told myself, like, anytime I play Mega, I have a 30 ball for them. So definitely.
Yeah, that was a gym. You know what? And I remember asking a lot of the guys from John Jay when they were coming on and speaking with them. And it's like you'd watch on their stream, and it's like a tough place to play. It's like the crowd is there. They play the games on a Friday night usually.
Oh, my God. Let me tell you about Mega. It's funny you said it because I agree. Mega was the toughest place for me to play in. The toughest, because you can't get away with trying to walk away and act like you can't hear the crowd because they're right there.
And I also think it's local too. There's like that sort of like intra-borough rivalry, if that makes sense. You have like Central Brooklyn and kind of Southern Brooklyn. You have there's like that kind of like animosity there, kind of drawn in a bit. I mean, everybody kind of, some of the players on the teams know each other because you've played in the same court, the same park. You run into each other. You guys are a few subway stops away from each other. I think there's like that built-in animosity, if that makes sense.
Can I say one thing though?
Absolutely.
It definitely was, but it was never that with the teams. Like, it's funny because Mega Evers and Brooklyn College, we were close. Like, we were cool with each other. Like, we would hang out. Well, I was hanging out with some of them. Like, during the off season, we'll work out or whatever the case may be. Like, we were super cool. But when we were in those games, you would think that none of us knew each other. And the reason the 41-point game was so, like, it was a monument moment for me is because we played Mega Evers the last game of the season at their house.
Yes.
On a Wednesday night.
Yes,
I've never gotten fouled out a day in my life, Tom. Never. Never. I had 12 points. I was feeling it that night. Michael Tesserero went down, and I remember that. That was senior year. My junior year is when we played them, their last game of the season.
Yep.
I got fouled out, brother. I was irritated. I was upset. And then after the game, we found out that we were playing them the first round of the playoffs on Saturday at Brooklyn College. So I said, okay. When I tell you I turned off my phone, I wasn't talking to nobody. I said, this is not going to happen again. And I came off the bench that game too. So
yeah, there was just something about them when you played them. It was just, I don't know what it was, but you definitely had those moments there. And I hope to be able to talk to you about more moments in the future. So I'm going to ask you one more question. And would you have any advice for anybody that's, let's say, like you, a player that just transitioned, or maybe a player currently that's thinking about what they would want to do after basketball? Because I think about you, obviously, my buddy Brad Weiss, who obviously his career also ended in 2020, and he's done a lot of things with the Long Island Nets, level up. He's coaching high school on Long Island. And I think about what you've done, obviously, with TYP and everything else. And, do you have any advice for players currently who are thinking about what they should do after their career ends?
Excuse me. Definitely. As far as the transition from, let's talk about high school players into college.
Sure.
My biggest advice to you guys is it's a quick turnaround. You finish your last high school game if you're really good in March when you're in
April,
the
maybe.
playoffs and in the
Lucky,
championship
yeah.
game, and then you're right into preseason work when August time comes.
Yep.
So you don't really have that much time to tone your body up, to get your mindset out of the I'm a high school student now, because you're on your own when you're in college. So my biggest thing to those type of guys or females or whoever plays any type of sports, whether it's basketball, soccer, football, baseball, whatever the case may be, you need to be able to find yourself before you get into college. Like if you try to find yourself while you're in college, it may be a little bit too late. And the reason I say that is because if you understand the type of person that you're going to be before you get into college, you're able to hold yourself to that standard. So if you hold yourself to that standard, the sky is the limit at that point. So like with me, when I came from transit to BMCC, I didn't know who I was as a person yet at all. So it was very difficult for me. It was difficult for me to socialize. It was difficult for me to pay attention in class. But when I went from BMCC to Brooklyn, my whole mindset was changed. It was more mature. Like I knew what I needed to do in order to get to the place that I wanted to get in. So as far as that, then after basketball, I need people to understand that the basketball or whatever sport that you play, it's a privilege. All right. It's a privilege to play sports. Not everybody is able to play sports. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So you need to be able to understand that, maximize your potential and whatever it is that you're doing in that sport, but also understand that you have a life outside of sports. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you want to play professionally, cool, no problem. But you can't play professionally for 50 years. You have
No,
to, exactly.
no way.
You have
No
to
way.
have something in the back. Like, for example, you look at guys like Paul George, JJ Redick.
Doing podcasting. JJ Redick's done announcing. I mean, you look at
My point exactly.
Charles Barkley. I mean, is a talking head for 20 plus years. He's been a talking head.
Shaquille O'Neal, like
Shaquille O'Neal, sure. Penny Hardaway's coaching now. I mean,
yep,
you
and
go
that's
down the list. Reggie
Chauncey
Miller.
Billups, like you know what I'm saying.
Big shot. Yep, absolutely.
You always have to have a backup plan. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like with me, the reason I had so much success out after my collegiate years is because even while I was playing, I made sure that I did what I needed to do to network. I did what I needed to do to get my grades on point and for me to graduate on time, so that I knew that one moment that the basketball was going to stop bouncing for me. And what am I going to do after that? I can't just sit at home and be, man, I remember back in 2020 when I was hooping in Brooklyn College. I still do that now, don't get me wrong, but I still have something else to fall back on.
But you know what, though? You live in the current. And before I get to closing thoughts, that's what's so important and so impressive. And that was what, listen, you know what? I was always impressed with you when I watched you play at Brooklyn, because you were such a great two-way player. You were one of these guys. As a fan, I probably didn't like so much because I was rooting usually for John Jay, which I went to, or somewhere else because I was covering them. But in terms of like what you'd bring to the table, you're definitely that kind of guy. That's the true definition of success. You think about your career, you've won 2 championships. Yes, individually, MVP, you know, almost 600 points in 2 years at Brooklyn, between BMC and Brooklyn, 1,000+ points, you know, all those great things you've done. Yes, 3-point percentage, free throws, everything else. But to me, it's what you've done off the court that will be your greatest success, because what you've done, this organization, I mean, in a short amount of time, you're still relatively a young man, and you're going to wind up doing tenfold what you've done off the court to compare to on the court. And that's why I really wanted to get you on. I definitely hope to have you on again in the future, because I've only scratched it, because I feel like I wanted to ask you more about some of the players that I actually watched that you sort of played with the BMCC and some other people, but we'll make it happen. I know you're a busy man, so I want to give you the floor now. Anything that you want to plug, anything else that you want to say to the audience, the floor is now yours, sir. I turn it over to you. Be my guest. Fire away.
So, you know how we were supposed to go live today, but we're gonna pre-record it, obviously.
Yes, we did. Yes, sir.
The only reason why we didn't go live is because I had some news I wanted to share, and I feel like this platform would definitely be a place that
I am the place to do that. We speak with a lot of wrestlers, and sometimes they say enough to the point that they actually decide to promote themselves. So you can certainly do that
so I'm
because you have.
definitely gonna. Like you said, it was definitely difficult to get me on here because we had a lot of back and forth. Like I was doing a lot,
Sure.
but this is gonna make sense now as to
Okay.
why it took me so
All right.
long.
Sure.
So I decided to resign from Wingate, being an assistant coach with Kevon Baker. He's done everything and more for me since I've started my coaching career. He's actually the first person to give me an opportunity to coach. But the only reason I'm not going to be coaching at Wingate anymore is because I accepted the head coaching position at Sullivan Community College for the men's JV basketball team. So it's a Division II school up there in Sullivan County.
Know it very well. Wow.
So yeah, man.
Wow. You have made it to the big time. Wow. You are now going to be a head coach of the Sullivan Community College men's basketball JV team. It all makes sense. The story certainly has written its own self. Wow.
Yes,
congratulations.
Sir.
You said a mouthful there. You said a mouthful. Wow. Congratulations, coach. I mean, certainly, I don't know. Like I said, what else can't you do? I mean, you should maybe try movies. You should try maybe some acting. I mean, you might actually
do what's crazy?
What?
I have a web series. I just never said anything to anybody. It's up on YouTube too.
Well, send it to me.
Link. It's a private link right now.
All right.
It's actually on my story. Like a guy hit me up. His name is Jay. He hit me up 2-3 years ago. Like, hey, I want to do this story on a young African American male who went through trials and tribulations as a junior college player and then went on to the 4-year level and had success.
Well, I would like to see it because, speaking of African Americans, one of my favorite actors right now is some guy you heard of named Denzel Washington. I've only seen his most recent movie, Equalizer 3, 5 times in the box office. So I might actually. So 5 times. So I'm a big fan of the movie, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Washington. He's also a former basketball player, by the way. You didn't know this. Yes. He played college basketball before he became a 2-time Oscar winner. So maybe you'll win an Oscar in 20 years from now. Who knows, right? Yes, but obviously, I want people to follow you, Coach, on Instagram at TYP_ANTT. Also Facebook, BALLII, lowercase LLIIFE. Make sure you follow Coach one more time on Instagram, TYP_ANTT. Facebook, BALL, lowercase I, also L, lowercase IIFE. Make sure you follow this man. I promise you this man's going to go on and do even bigger and better things. Despite what happened at Uber, he's going to crush it and some. Coach, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. You've definitely proven why it was well worth the wait to have you. I look forward to maybe talking with you during the season. Maybe we'll catch up and talk about the team. I'm trying to think who I might know with JUCO up there. I think my old friend Xavier Chernak is up in maybe your conference, I want to say. So maybe I have to think about who you play. Yep.
I have one more thing to say. I'm sorry.
Yes.
My Facebook link, I know that's what it shows. I'm not sure why, but it's just my name. Anthony McClean.
Okay. Now it does show that, but the actual @ so if I wanted to actually subscribe
okay, got you.
Yeah, that's why I did that, because it does show up as your name, but to actually subscribe, so if I want to follow you on Facebook, I have to put it in that way. So when I actually subscribe to you on Facebook, that's exactly what I had to do. Yeah,
got you.
How
You're good.
No, it's all good, and that's why we're definitely looking forward to having Coach here in the future and follow him on these great platforms. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. Congratulations, Coach, on all the success. I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you, brother.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Coach McClean, a man who has won 2 championships on the court at BMCC, Brooklyn College, the 2020 CUNYAC Men's Basketball Tournament MVP. He's the founder of the Trust Your Process LLC Group, which just had their 3rd tournament. They're going to have even bigger and better things ahead in 2024. And he is now the head coach of our Sullivan Community College Men's Basketball JV team. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you, everybody here, for tuning in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire.